Hello and welcome to Legalbytes. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. We don't give legal advice, but we do talk about how the law works and try to look into our crystal ball to see how things might turn out. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, we'd love it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, all the great YouTube-y stuff. And if you want to listen while out and about, we're now offering our live streams in podcast form where you can leave a rating and review. Links are in the description below, as well as to our clips channel where you can find some of the best clips taken from our live streams. Otherwise, if you want to catch me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Locals, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member, or by buying some really awesome Legalbytes merch. Again, all links are in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it. Hey guys, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. For me, it's kind of afternoon, evening-ish, I guess, sort of. Happy Monday and happy August. It is now August 1st. Can you guys believe it? It is literally 2 months from verdict day, and we are still talking about this case. Kind of nuts, kind of wild. Didn't anticipate that there would still be stuff to talk about. But yet here we are because other people keep writing about stuff and we keep needing to react to it because we need to contextualize and talk about where people are maybe saying things that are wrong. So, I love seeing all you guys here. I see folks from Vienna, from London, South Carolina, Spain. I'm so happy. New York City. So glad to see you guys. So happy to see all of you. And we've got some new members today too. There was one that I couldn't catch because StreamYard wouldn't let me go back that far, but I did see earlier that Taz Moz became a member. Welcome to Bike Club, Super Bike Club at that. Welcome. And also Stephanie Olson became a member. Welcome to Bike Club. Very happy to have you here. And no, that is not a ghost. That is Indy, who is moving around in the curtains here, pretending to be a ghost. Hey, Giannis, good afternoon from Greece. Hello, welcome. Happy to have you here. So we've got some stuff to talk about. As you guys, I'm sure, are aware, we, of course, have some new documents that recently got unsealed from the Depp v. Heard case. And some documents that got unsealed over the objection of Amber Heard's team, of course. So that was part of the fight there, and Judge Azcarate had to sort of ask Elaine about why, because normally what happens is the whole purpose of sealing these documents in a case like this is to prevent a jury from being prejudiced by having all of this information out there completely, and so that's usually the reason why. And so afterwards, you don't really have that concern anymore, right? So Judge Azcarate decided to unseal them and make them available to the public, which means, of course, that people were able to purchase copies of them. So Andrea Burkhart, who is on Twitter and is on YouTube now, she has her own channel, which is wonderful. She has a great channel, and she is linked in the description below. Although for some reason it is not actually linked. I'm going to need to fix that to make sure that people know exactly where to go to her channel. But anyway, so she said on Twitter that she was going to be buying copies of it to get those. And so the Justice for Johnny Depp community came together, as it often does, and donated a bunch of money to help pay for those costs, because it was a lot of money. It was thousands of dollars to pay for those documents to have them shipped, and then of course, because they had to be like physically mailed, right? And so then she put them on her website, which is amazing. And actually, I should share that here. I have another page queued up, but you know what? I'm going to share this first because she did such a great job with this. I mean, this must have been so much work here to have this done. So at andreaburkhart.com/documents. This is where you can get it. I'm going to have to link that in the description too. I should have thought of that. But anyway, you can see all of these documents that have been unsealed. There's part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. There was so much money that people came together to donate that they actually ended up donating more than what was necessary. So she gave the rest to charity, I believe, to Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, which is awesome because I love seeing them continue to benefit. Anyway, and I can see that Secret McSquirrel has her website here in the chat. So you guys can see that. Check it out for yourselves, and then I'll get that in the description afterwards. Anyway, so this is where you guys can go and see all of the documents for yourself. So of course, because of that, it was undoubtedly going to be happening that there would be people who would see these documents, cherry pick, and take what they wanted for Amber Heard's side as well. So I saw some Twitter threads that were interesting. And of course, there's some interesting reporting that has resulted as well. So one in particular that I wanted to talk about here is this one, which you guys, of course, saw on the thumbnail. I will share it here, right here. It's from the Daily Beast. And the author who wrote it tweeted it out, and I actually saw it because it was retweeted by Taylor Lorenz and Kat Tenbarge. So if you are familiar with those two individuals, you probably know what kind of event this is likely to have. Or as Cormoran here calls it, the Daily Grumpy. Interesting name. So, and I will start before we get into this particular article. You can have certain expectations going into it, right? Because you know that there are certain reputations that different publications have, right? So you wouldn't necessarily expect the Daily Beast to come at this neutrally, right? But we're gonna, I don't know, maybe have some fun with this. So let's get into it. Okay. So it says Unsealed Johnny Depp v. Amber Heard court documents reveal shocking new claims. Shocking, I tell you. They are absolutely shocking. And of course the subheadline is the plot thickens. The plot thickens, you guys, because there's new information here that's coming out that no one got to see at trial. It's a Daily Beast exclusive. More than 6,000 pages of documents were unsealed in the Depp v. Heard defamation saga, including Heard's worry that Depp would use her nude pics and the exclusion of Marilyn Manson. The boogeyman. Oh no, the boogeyman comes back. Real Laura B, thanks so much for the super chat. Thank you. 199 super chat. I really appreciate that. So you could tell, you could see here already from the get-go, it's coming from the perspective of Amber Heard's worry about what's going to be done with a certain photo of her and the exclusion of Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson should not have been excluded. He was so crucial in this trial. Okay. Anyway, let's actually get into this. For 7 weeks, our social media feeds were held hostage by the Johnny Depp v. Amber Heard defamation trial in Fairfax County, Virginia. Depp, who had previously been found by a UK judge to have abused Heard on 12 occasions, alleged 3 counts of defamation by Heard related to the 2018 op-ed she published in the Washington Post, wherein she called herself a public figure representing domestic abuse who spoke out against sexual violence. Okay. So there's it's like mostly accurate, right? Like this could have been written in actually a more neutral way because there were several statements that she made that were allegedly defamatory. They also could have said that the jury actually found them to be defamatory. But that's okay. All right, fine. It's not terrible so far. The Pirates of the Caribbean star claimed the piece damaged his reputation and career to the tune of $50 million, prompting Heard to file a $100 million counterclaim against Depp. Prompting Heard to file a $100 million counterclaim. Okay. Like she, it almost seems like the way that that's written, it almost seems like she's like, well, now my hands are tied. Now I have to counterclaim. I have to. You don't have to. On June 1st, after 61 hours of testimony from each side, including dozens of experts and witnesses, all of which was live streamed to a ravenous public. You guys are ravenous. You viewers are ravenous. The jury ruled that Heard had defamed Depp, awarding him $10.35 million in damages. Heard, meanwhile, was granted $2 million. Okay, so they did actually get to ultimately the verdict. Heard's team has since filed a post-trial motion asking the court to set aside the verdict or order a new trial, arguing that Heard played no role in crafting the op-ed's headline that had the phrase sexual violence in it. This much was revealed during the trial. This much was revealed during the trial. Well, you know what else was revealed during the trial was the fact that she retweeted it and added, not just retweeted, but quote tweeted it and added her own text, which is considered a republishing. That was, I mean, so that's okay, fine. That also was revealed at trial, but thank you, author. That the amount awarded to Depp was disproportionate and that a juror may have impersonated another juror. The judge denied the motions, though Heard can still appeal. Well, she has appealed. So this is a little bit outdated, even though this just came out yesterday after the appeal, after the notice of appeal was filed. Depp, for his part, launched a TikTok account. I don't know what relevance that has to anything. Presumably as a thank you to his legion of rabid fans who flooded the algorithm with selectively curated clips from the trial favoring their hero, and quietly settled a lawsuit with a crew member who claimed that the actor drunkenly assaulted him on the set of City of Lies. That case was set to go to trial this month. Okay, so multiple things here. They could have talked about how, you know, he went on and decided to live his life and like went on tour, like living his life, but they didn't talk about that. They decided to for whatever reason, point to the fact that he created a TikTok account after the verdict, not during, because and the reason for that, of course, is because of this criticism of the trial, right? Being or the trial live streams being a trial by TikTok, and that TikTok is this like it's like another one of these boogeymen of the trial, right? That like TikTok was like so responsible for causing this jury verdict. It was an abomination. And it was just like, it's the intent is to show sort of like cheap entertainment and that people are only watching this for its cheap entertainment value. I don't have a TikTok account personally, so I don't know. I do understand the concept of it because YouTube has shorts, Instagram has reels, and I watch all of those as well. So it's a very similar concept, if not identical concept. And then, of course, they point to the settlement of the lawsuit with Greg Brooks, which if you've watched the live streams on this particular channel talking about that, we talked about the fact that a settlement to a lawsuit means nothing for liability. It does not mean automatically that there is any amount of liability that anyone has admitted. What it means is that the two parties have decided that they would rather reach a particular agreement than go to trial because they've done a particular calculation, either factoring in the attorney's fees, the costs of trial. Those are very real concerns for people. Number 3, the information that would be revealed to the public as a result of the trial. And number 4, I mean, just the amount of time and life that you have to sort of like give up, and the anxiety and the stress, and all of that can have impacts on your relationships, on your family, on all of like different aspects of your life that maybe both sides were like, you know what, it's not worth it. So, or actually that is in fact what they decided. That is like one of the very few things that we can actually that we can actually point to and say, this is 100% what we can say here is that both sides decided that they reached a point where they would rather walk away than go to trial. What was that number that they exchanged? Because it's not always the case that money will be exchanged for a settlement. Typically it is, even if it's like a nuisance settlement, meaning like, I'm going to give you $5,000 to go away kind of settlement. Those do exist. Those do happen. We have no idea what that number was in this particular case. And we probably never will know. So this idea that they're pointing to this settlement, and I kind of pointed that out, that there likely would be people who would point to that and say, "Ooh, he settled it. He made it. He tried to make it go away. He tried to quiet that down." When in all reality, he probably I don't have any information to back this up. My guess is that he probably would rather actually go through with a trial at times in order to have that information just be out there rather than have these questions follow him, right? But there are other factors that come into play. The fact that, for example, he would rather, be on tour playing music, which he testified to at trial was the number one love in his life, his first love. So the fact that they point to quietly settled a lawsuit, he quietly settled a lawsuit with a crew member because he wanted to hush it. No, like we don't know that. Anyway. Okay. Anyway, but I'm going to step off the little soapbox there and get back to it. Over the weekend, more than 6,000 pages of court documents in the Depp v. Heard trial were unsealed. The documents, or the docs, which were viewed by the Daily Beast, shed new light on the case seen around the world, providing new insights into each team's legal strategy. Ultimately, as you'll see, the mountain of docs do not appear to reflect too well on Team Depp. Okay. We will see, shall we? But also interesting because these documents were literally just made public this weekend. And someone who read 6,000 pages? You read all 6,000 pages? The docs, which were viewed by the Daily Beast. That also makes me wonder, to what extent were they viewed? Were they just was it the box, the banker's box was somebody walked by and was like, oh, I can see all of those documents. I have viewed them. Technically, I have viewed them. Or did they have somebody actually sift through all 6,000 pages to go through this? Something tells me probably not. But this is very, I don't know. We'll see just how comprehensive this is or not comprehensive this is. Okay, let's keep reading. Did Depp want to submit Heard's nudes into evidence? They ask. In unsealed pretrial court documents, Heard's team argued to the judge that evidence of a number of irrelevant personal matters should be excluded from the defamation trial, while alleging Mr. Depp inappropriately seeks to introduce evidence of the following irrelevant personal matters. 1. Nude pictures of Amber Heard. 2. Amber Heard's sister Whitney's reality show video. 3. Whitney and Amber's past romantic relationships. 4. Amber's brief stint as an exotic dancer years before she met Mr. Depp, and Mr. Depp attempting to frivolously and maliciously suggest or imply that Miss Heard was at one time an escort. I mean, one thing that this article does seem to show here is that people were questioning if she had been an exotic dancer. And it seems here that she did have actually a brief stint. It was admitted she had a brief stint as an exotic dancer. I don't care, to be honest. But I don't care one way or another. If someone decides to be an exotic dancer, if that's how she chooses to make her money, or if she wants to say that it was because she knew that she wanted to be in Magic Mike or something and wanted to do research or something. I don't care. But it is interesting that is something that has now been admitted unwittingly in this article, when one thing to note here is that one thing that I noticed is that this entire article, if you look at it, everything that they say is allegations from Amber Heard's perspective and things that Johnny Depp tried to keep out. This is basically how you can characterize all of the points that they bring up. Keep that in mind as we continue going on, because that definitely fits into this first one about the introducing nudes into evidence. I can see why there would be reasons why Johnny Depp's team would find nude photos to be actually relevant. Now, like actually introducing them in a redacted fashion, you know, I can see all kinds of issues and all kinds of reasons why Amber Heard would not want that to be admitted, of course, or why she would not want those to be exchanged even for the other legal team to view. It's very personal, obviously. But if she's making allegations, for example, that on this date he had done something to her, and and so she was like afraid of him, or she was wanted to avoid him for whatever reason, but then she sends him photos and communications that would show the opposite. That is fairly relevant. It's fairly relevant to rebut her claims. So this is taken out of context is one issue here. And this is one of the things that kind of annoys me about articles like this, is that coming from a legal background, one of the things that I love about going straight from legal documents is that legal documents, in order to properly, I'm going to make this a little smaller for this part, but in order to properly make an argument in a briefing or in a motion or what have you, you have to cite to your legal authority. You have to cite to the case law or the statute or the treatise or wherever you are getting this idea or this argument or this support for your argument in order to have your argument be accepted and convincing. And one of the benefits to being on the opposite side of someone who is writing something and citing to a particular case law is you can go and check exactly where they got that argument and look up that support and look up that case. And you can oftentimes find, oh, that actually doesn't support what they say it does. So by doing that extra work, you can do a little bit more to show that, hey, actually, this case doesn't support their side. It actually supports our side. And here's why. And then you can go around and basically Krav Maga that against the opposing side to the court to make your argument. The problem that I have with articles like this that pull quotes from documents and they don't say where they are getting them from means that we are getting something that is out of context, and someone has to go and do a lot of detailed work to go through 6,000 pages to try to find the context behind this to show, why it's maybe as damning as they say it is, or maybe not. This is a little bit more of a of a rant for me as well. But this is just an example right here, right? This did Depp want to submit Heard's nudes into evidence? This is pulling from a response from Amber Heard's side. But what are they responding to? What were the arguments on Johnny Depp's side for why they said that they think that those should be included? They don't provide that here. Okay. Depp's team tried to use the death of Heard's friend against her. A deposition of Whitney Henriquez, Heard's sister, dated February 3rd, 2022, is included among the newly unsealed court documents. During the interview, Depp's attorneys ask a series of questions about Logan, quote unquote, a friend of Heard's who passed away in a car accident as a teenager, which had a profound impact on Heard and, according to Henriquez, left her, quote unquote, devastated. Depp's attorneys first asked if Heard and Logan were romantically involved or ever fought, to which Henriquez replied no. They then attempted to insinuate that Heard told Henriquez she was with Logan the day he died and or was driving the car he died in, to which Henriquez said that did not happen. Still, Depp's attorneys continued to press Henriquez, asking whether Heard's driver's license being suspended had anything to do with the accident in which Logan died, to which Henriquez replied, it had nothing to do with that. Henriquez further testified that Heard had never hit, slapped, or thrown anything at her, adding, I never said I was subjected to any violence because of Amber. Okay. So the reason for going into this is because, well, when we're talking about a deposition, we are talking about discovery. the discovery stage. And so you have a very wide latitude to go into information that could lead to admissible evidence. So if there is a relationship that is potentially questionable here, right? Because there is possibly could indicate a pattern of abuse by Amber Heard against, against past relationships or what have you. That's a possibility that could lead to admissible evidence. So, they're trying to say that Johnny Depp, through his attorneys, is like trying to dig into like emotionally charged stuff just to dig into emotionally charged stuff. Like that's what it sounds like. It sounds like the author is accusing them of just being a-holes when there is a purpose behind this, right? Like the reason for it is to dig into all of this information. They have to. In order for the attorney to properly do his or her job, they have to ask the questions that are uncomfortable, especially if it's a case like this that is uncomfortable. So Depp's attorneys first asked if Heard and Logan were romantically involved or ever fought, to which Enriquez replied no. That's a legitimate question. In a case like this, that's a legitimate question to ask about her prior relationships. And then to ask if Amber was around on that day that friend passed away, if Amber had that particular relationship, if Amber was there at the time that it happened, they have to ask those questions because otherwise they could have a professional responsibility claim against them for not asking those questions. Let's continue on. Okay. Among the newly unsealed documents are exhibits of text messages that Depp's then assistant Stephen Deuters sent to Heard in 2014 about the time Depp had allegedly kicked Heard during a fight aboard a private jet. If someone was truly honest with him about how bad it really was, he would be appalled, Deuters texted Heard about Depp. I'm sad he does not have a better way to really know the severity of his actions yesterday. Unfortunately for me, I remember them in full detail, everything that happened. He was appalled when I told him he kicked you. He cried. Depp subsequently texted Heard, once again, I find myself in a place of shame and regret. Of course, I am sorry. I will never do it again. My illness somehow crept up and grabbed me. I feel so bad for letting you down. In messages retained by Heard, he subsequently texted to apologize while calling himself a effing savage and a lunatic, which that is censored by myself to try to maintain some level of language, although I might end up letting it slip at some point if I get aggravated enough. So the Stephen Deuters text, we knew about this. This is not new information, right? Like maybe the jury didn't know about it, but that's because it was not admissible evidence. It was hearsay. And the whole reason is because it's not like you can't look at a text message from a third party admitting to something. Like you can't have someone like Stephen Deuters admit on Johnny Depp's behalf that something happened. That's not how that works. So this it was properly capped out. If it were Johnny Depp saying, I kicked you, that's a different story. But having Stephen Deuters say he kicked you, that doesn't mean that Johnny Depp actually kicked her. Right? So the thing is, also, Amber Heard would have had the ability to call Stephen Deuters as a witness. He's around. His wife almost testified, right? Gina Deuters, unfortunately, she was removed and all of her testimony was struck because she had said that she had seen clips of the trial online, which in hindsight, I almost wonder if what she meant was she had seen clips from the UK trial. I don't know, but that was such an unfortunate situation for the Depp trial, for the Depp side of the trial. But I mean, we can even go into we saw the way that Johnny Depp wrote text messages, right? He has a very flowery way of speaking and writing, and it's a very artistic way. And at the same time, if you also understand the way that a a domestic abuse survivor will often placate their abuser, this can also make sense from that perspective, right? That he can say, like, once again, I find myself in a place of shame and regret. Of course, I'm sorry. I will never do it again. My illness somehow crept up and grabbed me. I feel so bad for letting you down. That also can mean his illness, meaning an illness of alcoholism. That is considered an illness. So it could be that he's just talking about the fact that he fell into getting very, very drunk and or high, knowing that he's had a problem with it. It could be that. There are so many different ways of interpreting those text messages. And then they say, but Depp's law firm, Brown Rudnick, could not find any record of the text in Depp's iCloud and looked into whether they may have been, in their words, deleted. Ultimately, the law firm determined they were, quote unquote, missing for reasons unknown. These texts regarding the kicking incident were presented in the trial, in the UK trial, but not deemed admissible in the Virginia defamation trial. Right, because it's hearsay. They should have been considered hearsay in the UK as well, because my understanding is they also have the hearsay objection in the UK. Unless I'm mistaken, someone who is more familiar with British law can definitely inform me otherwise, but I'm pretty sure they also have the hearsay, the rule against hearsay. But this, I mean, here's another issue, right? Like I said before, about like, where are they getting, like, where do they get this from? Where do they say? Where did Brown Rudnick say that they couldn't find these text messages? I don't know. If it's buried in 6,000 pages, why not cite to it? I mean, I understand this is not a legal document. It's not a legal argument. But I do wish that these kinds of articles would cite every once in a while, at least from like the document that they got it from. And it could be, I mean, these kinds of digital documents, they also go missing from time to time, depending on how far back you go. This is from 2014, and the lawsuit was filed in 2019. So 5 years later, he may have been several iPhones later at that point. That's another reason why a statute of limitations exists, right? Is because evidence becomes more and more difficult to find and keep track of over time. But anyway, Heard walked away from millions. The court documents reveal that during their divorce proceedings, Heard's lawyers begged her to reconsider her decision to walk away from tens of millions of dollars, since Depp shot the fifth Pirates of the Caribbean movie during their marriage, and therefore it was considered a community property asset, with Heard entitled to half the income from the asset. Since Depp had earned over $33 million from Pirates 4, it stood to reason that the number would be that or higher for number 5. But Heard refused, leading her lawyers to tell her via email that she was being amazingly true to your word, that this is not about the money. The judge, however, rejected the inclusion of any evidence related to their divorce proceedings in the defamation trial. Right, because what relevance would that have? Like, what relevance would that particular communication between her and her attorneys have? What relevance does any of that have? So, also, again, I would like to see context for this conversation. I mean, what if right after that sentence, right after amazingly true to your word that this is not about the money, like what if right after that they were like, yeah, it's about taking down his reputation. Context is key, right? And we don't get any of that in this article. Depp said he was not alleging harm from Heard. Now, this is a point that is particularly misleading, in my opinion. because that is not what they said in their arguments here. So either, and so this is one of those cases where either the author doesn't understand the legal process or understands it and intentionally wants to mislead the public. You choose. I don't know which one is worse. Though Depp's team spent many hours of the trial trying to paint Heard as the abuser in the relationship, an unsealed motion by Depp's team opposing a mental examination of Depp argued that the actor should not be subjected to an independent medical examination because Mr. Depp is not alleging harm based on a specific physical or mental injury. Depp's team further claimed that Mr. Depp does not allege a specific cause of action for intentional or negligent infliction of emotional distress, does not assert that Miss Heard's actions caused him a specific psychiatric injury, and does not claim that Miss Heard's actions caused him to experience unusually severe emotional distress. Okay, so when it says they tried to paint Amber Heard as the abuser in the relationship, they literally showed photos of his severed finger and the cigarette burn on his cheek and the bruises on his face. They along with medical records, right? Like along with actual medical records that he sought medical treatment for that, and then had tons of medical treatment for that severed finger for a long time afterwards. So that, and then on the other side saying an unsealed motion by Depp's team opposing a mental examination of Depp argued that the actor should not be subjected to an independent medical examination. Yeah, because he didn't. He alleged harm. He alleged a lot of physical harm. He alleged, I think he alleged general emotional harm. You can do that, by the way. But when we are talking about defamation per se, you don't actually have to allege any damage. You don't have to allege that you have some acute emotional harm. So in order to be subjected to an independent medical examination, you have to have opened the door for that. Something like PTSD, for example, post-traumatic stress disorder. That is exactly what Amber Heard did, and that is exactly why she was subject to an independent medical examination. Because Johnny Depp never alleged that, he didn't have to, because he didn't have like a specific diagnosis that he says, this is what I have, that then gives the other side the ability to say, well, I'm not sure that you have that. So I need to be able to actually look into that and examine you, or have someone examine you to tell whether or not you have the thing that you say that you have. If she said, or if Johnny said, as a result, I have been suffering from acute depression and anxiety and whatnot, they would have the ability to go in and poke around in there to find out whether or not he actually has those things that he says he has. But because they didn't allege any of that, they didn't have any right to go in there and poke around for nothing. And I suspect that the reason why they said in this headline here, subheadline, saying Depp said he was not alleging harm from Heard, he was not alleging intentional or negligent infliction of emotional distress. That is not the same thing as not alleging any harm or emotional harm, right? That is a specific cause of action that he didn't allege. Now, Marilyn Manson has alleged that in his case against Evan Rachel Wood and Elma Gore. We've talked about that on this channel. If you are interested in that, check out the video on it. I talk a lot about intentional infliction of emotional distress, not negligent. But anyway, so to say that he doesn't allege specific harm is different than saying he doesn't allege harm or emotional harm. Okay, so like that distinction is very real in the law. And this is misleading as a result. Heard's list of comparable actors. A rather dubious claim made by Heard's team in pretrial docs was that the actress suffered economic losses in the range of $47 to $50 million over a 3 to 5 year period due to defamatory statements made by Depp and his inner circle. Heard's team further listed a series of actors that they felt were comparable to Heard in stature, including Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot. I got corrected by people during the trial, the trial for that. Zendaya. Sorry, I got corrected on that one too. So Gal Gadot, Zendaya, Ana de Armas, and Chris Pine. All of these actors were clearly much bigger stars than Heard. So this is actually a point that I agree with. I think a lot of us can agree with this one. But that also is not new information, right? That came out at trial. Okay, this is not new. Were Depp's photos and audio subject to manipulation, quote unquote? According to the unsealed court documents, Heard's team argued. Remember, Heard's team argued. Doesn't mean that this is true. This is the argument that they put forward. The metadata from photos and audio submitted by Depp as evidence in the case reveals the items were modified days before their production in this case. That Depp produced multiple partial audio recordings that begin and end in the middle of a sentence. And the metadata indicates the audio recordings were created in September 2015 and then modified in June 2016, and again 1 day before their production. But Depp only produced the modified version. This raises significant concerns of manipulation, alteration, and deletion. My understanding is that the audio recording that he got or that he had was what he got from the UK trial. I don't know this for a fact, but this is what I understand. Feel free to correct me on that if you know otherwise. But also, it is entirely possible to start a recording halfway through a conversation and to stop it after you're like, all right, this is going nowhere, or all right, I've heard enough. Okay. Yeah, DeGeneres Queen says Amber gave this audio. So yeah. Okay. This came from Amber from the UK trial. That was my understanding. So if anybody else says otherwise, feel free to correct me, like I said, but this is the understanding that I have. And this is what I'm moving forward with. So, okay. So Amber Heard's team was arguing about the quality of audio that they gave to Johnny Depp. And so, okay. But this article doesn't recognize the fact that they probably got called out for that in the response from Johnny Depp's team. Again, this is arguably being cherry picked here. Heard's team repeatedly requested the full audio of these conversations, but were denied it, maybe because he didn't have it. As far as the photographs Depp produced allegedly showing scratches and bruises on his person from Heard, their metadata contained create and modified dates of years after the alleged incidents occurred. Heard's team alleged. One had a date of 7/24/2019. Another photo had no creation date, but a modified date of 7/4/2020. And yet another one's creation, modified, received, and sent dates are July 22nd, 2019, despite Mr. Depp claiming this picture was taken in March 2015, according to Team Heard. Another photo Depp submitted of an alleged injury had no creation or modified date metadata and lists the sent and modified dates as July 3rd, 2020. So the photos of him with bruises, my understanding is those weren't even taken from his phone. Okay. Yep. Emma Lewis says it was taken on bodyguard's phone, Sean Betts. So a photo of a photo. Right. And he testified to that at trial. Maybe this author would know if he watched the trial. I think that some of the other stuff that we've seen so far also would indicate that this new information, which is not new, is maybe only new to this author because he didn't actually watch the trial. This is okay. Cool. Cool. Furthermore, Heard's team retained Julian Ackert, a forensic expert at iDiscovery Solutions, who declared under penalty of perjury that he'd reviewed the metadata of Depp's submitted evidence and found anomalies that call into question the authenticity of the multimedia documents, including instances where the date metadata, such as creation and date metadata, is either missing or is significantly after the alleged date of the incident. Missing creation dates and or modification dates that post-date the facts can be a sign of digital evidence manipulation. Ackert later testified in court that photos Heard submitted of her bruised face were originals. All right. I mean, same. Russian bots? Okay, wait, hang on. Before I do that, I'll read the next paragraph. Depp's team argued in a separate motion that the court should exclude any evidence of his then lawyer Adam Waldman's quote unquote supposed misdeeds, including his quote unquote Russian connections, which was granted by the court. Lawyers for Depp also fought to exclude evidence of negative social media traffic and purported Russian bot campaign regarding Miss Heard. This is a good time to point out. I know it's very convincing, guys. I am not a Russian bot. First off, not Russian, Lithuanian. If you mistake the two in person to a Lithuanian American, Lithuanian, what have you, it won't end well. Not a bot. Anyway, of course, I came to this a little bit late, and this allegation was there already. But bop boop beep boop, bop boop beep boop. Okay, but what does his Russian connections? Doesn't he live in DC? Anyone who has lived in DC long enough is going to meet someone from Russia at some point. It's a very diverse place. Yeah, I know. This is just your world is completely turned upside down, Elbon. I know. First, JD doesn't have scissor fingers. Now Lita isn't a bot. Everything I know is a lie. Seriously. But yeah. So what relevance would that have if he has Russian connections? That I don't know him all that well. I've never met him. I've never talked to him personally. But from what I understand is any connections that he's ever had with Russia were diplomatic connections. So who cares? That's a thing that happens in DC. So, okay. And then they fought to exclude evidence of negative social media traffic and purported Russian bot. Where is this quote coming from? This is so frustrating. Where does this quote come from? Is this from did they talk to Elaine Bredehoft over the phone and she said that or something? Or did they take this from a document? I don't know. They give absolutely zero context. So, okay. Anyway, this is so upsetting that Indy is actually she's moved to the chair. She needed to get more comfortable. Anyway, let's get on to it. Unlikely to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence. Okay. What are they trying to say about that? That is an actual discovery standard. That is the discovery standard. Among the unsealed court documents is a counterclaim filed by Depp's legal team on February 7th, 2022. Finally, they flagged where they got the damn quote from, objecting to Heard's fourth set of interrogatories. Okay, it's not a counterclaim. It's not a counterclaim. Right here, if it is objecting to Heard's fourth set of interrogatories, damn it, get it right if you're going to report on it. What it is it's a response. It's not a counterclaim, because a counterclaim is what Amber Heard did in response to Johnny Depp's lawsuit. Is she claimed she made counterclaims against him for defamation. It's not the same thing. In response to Heard's team's demand that Depp please describe in detail each and every incident during which you contend that Miss Heard inflicted any type of physical or emotional violence or abuse upon you, along with dates, times, and location, as well as a description of the communications and actions leading up to, through, and following such alleged violence or abuse. Depp's team further objects to this interrogatory as unlikely to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence, and that it seeks documents and communications that are irrelevant, immaterial, or unnecessary to the issues in this action. Okay. Okay. And what's your point? This is an objection to an interrogatory. Like, what happens? So in the discovery process, this is something that happens. I make a request for information like this to the opposing side, and they give a bunch of objections. It depends on the firm. Some firms, just as a matter of course, they have like a whole block of objections that they give, boom, 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 and then eventually they give their response. Others are a bit more like they're a bit more precise, and they will just do the ones that they think are actually relatively likely, and they won't have like this whole block text of like objections that like may or may not even apply. But like, this doesn't say whether or not Johnny Depp actually ended up responding to that interrogatory. All it says is that he made that objection, which is such a common thing that it's like, if you're in the regular course of litigation, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. No one, like, it's one of those things that, like, as you are in the discovery process on, if I'm on Amber Heard's team and I get those responses, if they respond, if they ended up actually giving the response to the questions that I asked, I don't care about those objections because I got the information that I needed. Anyway. So, this idea of like, and I get what they're trying to say here is that they're trying to say that, the the incident during which Johnny Depp contends that Amber Heard inflicted physical or emotional violence or abuse upon him, they're trying to say that this is some sort of an admission that Johnny says that it's not reasonably likely to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence, meaning it doesn't exist, right? Like that's what they're trying to insinuate here, is that like this is some sort of an admission that like Johnny's like, oh no, like this doesn't, it's not, there's no information there, so you're not going to be able to admit it. That's not actually the case here, right? So once again, there's crucial context here that is missing, that they are, I have a feeling that this is getting sort of carved out and cherry picked piecemeal to make it look like they are just trying to exclude certain things when we have no idea if they actually responded to that interrogatory. And then we get to the boogeyman, Marilyn Manson. But first, let me get some super chats here because I've got some that are that have been sitting here for a bit. Well, first off, Time Out, welcome to Bite Club. Welcome to being a YouTube member. Welcome. Happy to have you here. Andres Calderon says, first off, thanks for the super chat, says, just in the first sentence saying that Johnny was found in the UK, that he abused her, wasn't it a possibility, not a fact? Well, they did come to that conclusion legally, right? The judge did come to that conclusion. So they actually can say that the UK court found that he abused her, because that is what they ultimately decided. Whether you disagree with that is another question. But yeah, Val says, I've read that she was the driver in the accident from several people from her hometown. Whitney lies for her. That's probably the real reason why they were asking those questions about that car accident, right? And my understanding is that they do have she does have a record for a DUI, I think, or something like that from that time period. And I say that because I've seen something about her having some sort of a DUI. Anyway, Eric Hunley, thanks so much for the super chat, says they are literally amazed she could keep her word. Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. Cherokee Girl says, Indy, I've missed you. Aw, she missed you too, Cherokee Girl. Thank you so much for the super chat. Patty Joe Sloss says, shout out to all the awesome mods. Yes, shout out to the awesome mods. We have some really, really great ones. And I always appreciate all of their time and effort to keep the chat moving forward in such a great way. And Seaberg, thanks so much for the super chat. Appreciate it. And Cherokee Girl, welcome to Bike Club. Now you're a mod and you are a member of Bike Club. I appreciate it. Okay. Let's get back into it and let's get into the boogeyman. Okay. Marilyn Manson, the boogeyman. Depp's team fought hard to exclude any references to and evidence regarding Marilyn Manson because they argued it would smear Mr. Depp under a guilty by association theory. Yeah. Yes. Yes, they did worry that. And they have reason to worry that. That's not new. As anyone knows who was watching the trial, references to Marilyn Manson came in throughout the trial, and no one had any understanding of like actually why, other than to try to insinuate exactly what Depp's team said, a guilty by association theory, because of the fact that he's been used as a scapegoat in the past. He's been used as a scapegoat for most notably Columbine. Anyway. And then other stuff too, along with that. But and I know that there's the Marilyn Manson case that he has filed against Evan Rachel Wood, and we've got some more of the sexy bots. Hang on, guys. Let me make this subscribers only so that we can eliminate those sex bots, hopefully. Okay. Alrighty, let's move on. Heard team's testimony and evidence Depp fought to exclude. Okay. This is once again going on with the theme of this article is that Amber Heard argued and Johnny Depp tried to exclude. This is what they're trying to say. If you frame it in that way, that's the only way that you can really write an article like this, because the actual facts that came out at trial don't really jive well with the facts that actually came out at trial. Anyway, okay, her team's testimony and evidence fought to exclude. Depp's legal team fought to convince the court to exclude the testimony of actress Ellen Barkin, who'd claimed Depp angrily threw a bottle in her direction while they were dating. She didn't actually... Okay, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. Is my memory wrong here? But I'm pretty sure she said that he didn't throw the bottle at her. He didn't throw it in her direction. He threw it across the room. That was my memory of her. Oh yeah, tossed. Lemon Fresh says tossed. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Angrily threw. Did she even say it was angrily? Yeah. Yeah. Toss. Yeah. That's what everybody's saying. And then it hit a table. So, but yeah, again, but my understanding was he tossed it across the room is what she said, not in her direction. Yeah. Yeah. It was not in her direction. By the way, Marion Williams, welcome to Bike Club. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining. Okay. So anyway, so they fought to convince the court to exclude. My understanding is the original reporting here was that they actually convinced the court to exclude her testimony, which is not what happened. So I'm glad that they corrected that. However, if they fought to convince the court to exclude the testimony, so what? That's their job. Just like it's Amber Heard's legal team's job to fight to exclude testimony that's in any way good for Johnny Depp. Anyway, and then Dr. David Spiegel, a psychiatrist who testified on behalf of Heard about the alleged trauma inflicted by Depp. Yeah. And if you actually saw his testimony that came out at trial, you would understand why, because it reeked of junk science. Anyway, text between Depp and his actor slash pal, Paul Bettany, wherein Bettany suggested they submit Heard to a drowning test to determine whether or not she's a witch. To which Depp replied, "Let's drown her before we burn her. I will F her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she is dead." Okay. Okay. Yes, they fought to keep those out. Wouldn't you if you were their lawyer? Because you can understand why a jury would see that and maybe be prejudiced about that. But actually, the ironic thing is, I don't remember that first text being there going into the trial, because if you know if I had seen that, it would have been even more clear here that the text where Bettany suggested they submit her to a drowning test to determine whether or not she's a witch, like that would have made it more clear to me that they're referencing Monty Python, as opposed to like actually saying that they should burn her. Okay. Anyway, but again, this is not new. These text messages are not new. They actually came in. And we all got to see them. The jury got to see them. They got to hear them. So how is any of this new? I will F her burnt corpse afterwards, make sure she's dead. And then an audio of Heard telling Depp, "I had dumped you an effing week prior, after you beat the shit out of me." Okay. So I don't remember that coming out, which means that it was probably excluded, which means that there was a reason for excluding it. Anyway, Team Depp also wished to exclude the testimony of Dr. Dawn M. Hughes, a psychologist who met with Heard for 29 hours over 4 sessions and determined that she suffered from PTSD as a result of intimate partner violence by Depp. Yeah, well, they also don't say here that she made all kinds of conclusions about Johnny Depp without actually seeing him, including the intimate partner violence part. So, okay. And then forensic expert Julian Ackert, who suggested that audio and photos submitted as evidence by Depp raised concerns of manipulation, alteration, and deletion. They tried to exclude any evidence regarding Depp's medical condition and medical history other than physical injuries sustained by Mr. Depp during the party's relationship, or the use of drugs or alcohol in Miss Heard's presence in the context of alleged abuse, as they were worried Heard wished to present evidence that Mr. Depp takes Valtrex. Okay. Okay. And if it's not relevant, then it's not relevant. So, like this whole thing of like Team Depp wished to exclude. Well, you know what? You know who Team Heard tried to exclude? All of Johnny Depp's good witnesses. All of them. So, okay. Cool. What's your point? It's an adversarial process. So, both sides are trying to have the other side's evidence and witnesses excluded. Because that's what happens in an adversarial process. You try to make your best arguments to hold the other side to as high a standard as possible. Okay. And then they say, and then they go on, and Dr. Amy Banks, who was a quote unquote, relationship consultant that met with the couple and answered in the affirmative in court when asked if Heard was a victim of domestic violence at the hands of Mr. Depp. Amy Banks was not a witness at trial. Right? I was there for every single minute of this trial. You guys know that. So, Dr. Amy Banks, unless her name was different from where we, no Amy Banks. Okay. That's what I thought. So then the question is it's so funny because it's like they use the term doctor, they use the term relationship consultant, and then they use the fact that she answered in the affirmative in court when asked if Heard was a victim of domestic violence at the hands of Mr. Depp. Okay, number one, she didn't testify in court, at least not here. Did she testify in the UK? I don't know, maybe. But this doesn't make it clear what they're talking about. She didn't testify in court. Do they mean that she answered in the affirmative in a deposition? Because that is different. I mean, it's under the same penalty of perjury, but that's different than saying in court. Maybe one of the reasons why she didn't end up testifying is because of her the way in which she reached a conclusion for him being a domestic violence or her being a victim of domestic violence at the hands of Mr. Depp. How did she get there? We don't know. We don't know if she used some junk science version of logic. Anyway, well, I think that's the end of the article. Yep. That's it. What do you guys think, guys? Do you think this was a this was a very balanced article, right? Very neutral, of course. Definitely yeah. Elbon says this is junk journalism. I would agree. And the thing is that some people will say that we really should just move on from this particular subject because, we're supposedly milking it on social media or YouTube or whatever, because this is milking a really good subject. But the fact of the matter is that there are still people that are putting out misinformation about this particular case, or maybe not misinformation, but they are putting out misleading information about this particular case. And so sometimes, it takes being that annoying person that will continue to respond because of the fact that people are spouting BS about this, and it's dumb. And the fact is that, sometimes you need some people to contextualize, you need some people to explain. So anyway, that's about all I got for this one. There are other articles, there are other tweet threads that I'm sure we could go through at some point as well. But yeah. What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comment section if you are watching on the replay. And otherwise, I first off would like to thank everybody for watching. Thank you guys for coming in, for watching and engaging with me. Thank you everybody in the chat. Thank you again, of course, to my mods. You guys are wonderful, and I'm so grateful for you guys for marshaling a healthy, wonderful chat that is productive and sometimes adversarial. People get into disagreements, but anyway, cool. All right, guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful start to your week. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you guys